The NFC South. Oh boy. Carolina was 2-15 last year after I sat here following their draft and their offseason last year and said this could be a team that really takes a jump. They jumped, but they jumped off a cliff instead. Only 2 wins. Bryce Young did not look like it at all. Old man Adam Thielen, he was a force to be reckoned with early on for fantasy, and then age, he remembered just how old he was. 5.5 is their projected win total this year for Dave Canales coming over from division rival Tampa Bay. More on them later. I don't know. I think the question I want to ask is how many more games can they win from 2?
So
any?
Here's the question I want to ask. You need to upgrade your wide receiver position, right? You're like, we need someone better than Adam Thielen.
Yeah.
What's the first name that comes to your mind?
Oh, Brandon Ayuk, T. Higgins, they're available,
Harris
right?
Marshall Jr.
So it's not Deontay Johnson.
That losing, trading away cornerback Dante Jackson was certainly not part of that equation either.
Deontay Johnson. When was the last time he played?
Well, he just came back from an injury and hurt his foot as soon as he got back in the practice field. So who knows if he'll ever play?
That's what I mean. You have Adam Thielen, Jonathan Mingo. Yes, I get you brought in Xavier Legette, and a lot of people think that, he's going to be a very, very big piece for Bryce Young. But the Miles Sanders contract is a disaster. And Miles Sanders is another reason why you don't pay running backs. So that leaves them with Chuba Hubbard. No weapons at all on the offensive side of the ball. Bryce Young doesn't have a lot to work with. Defensively, it's just a lot of has-beens in Jadeveon Clowney and Shaq Thompson. You got rid of Brian Burns. Thank you for that. There's just not a lot of talent here. Xavier Woods and Jordan Fuller, I like their safety position. J.C. Horn is a solid corner. But remember, it felt like, even in the Matt Rule era, it felt like they were at least drafting tons of defensive talent. They just don't have that. Exactly. This team is probably the most talent-deprived team in the National Football League.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Especially, their big piece was Brian Burns. Where did he end up?
I don't know. We'll have to see that in the future.
Yeah,
you watch Hard Knocks.
That for next week.
But the Panthers, you guys keep saying it, they don't have the talent. They don't. What's there? Bryce Young looked awful. I don't know. They only have one way to go, and that's up. I don't think there'll be a no-win or a one-win team. It's hard to lose, to not win a game. You almost have to try to lose every single game.
It's also hard to win more than 3.
It's tough. They benefit from playing in a softer division, in a softer league in the NFC. If Bryce Young doesn't start to do things on his own and not rely on everything to be perfect, it's going to be another long year. And even at their best, I don't know if 5 wins is within reach.
Yeah, I think that these guys can play their best game, and it's going to be a close nail-biter with someone playing their worst game. This is a talent-deprived roster.
Yeah. A team that has kind of become the offseason favorites, the Atlanta Falcons, 7-10 last year. Projected win total this year, 9.5. I think, is it fair to say these are the division favorites amongst the media? They get Kirk Cousins, a little bit of tampering maybe. Raheem Morris comes over, the new head coach. And you said about Carolina drafting all that defensive talent. Atlanta's done that on the offensive side of the ball. Now, will they be utilized is the question. Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and yes, Kyle Pitts.
Mike Penix.
Tyler
Algier, Mike Penix. Strange first-round pick still.
Kadarrell Hodge.
Ben's just listing off the depth chart here.
Kirk Cousins.
Kirk Cousins. But Atlanta, seriously. I mean, they're the favorites, right? Kirk
No.
Cousins comes over. No?
So the reason I say no is because I have more confidence in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers right now.
Okay.
And that confidence can be shaken. But, I mean, when we get to the Buccaneers, we'll kind of go through their roster. They still have guys. They still have talent. And ultimately, I trust Baker Mayfield more than Kirk Cousins right now. I mean, you're thinking about Kirk Cousins. Apparently, rumor has it the reason why Michael Penix isn't playing anymore in the preseason is because he may have to play week 1. So is Kirk Cousins really ready? Apparently, he might not be. And, you know, I like Drake London. I like Bijan Robinson. I don't love Darnell Mooney. I don't love Ray McLeod. These guys don't have a ton of talent at the wide receiver position. And if Kyle Pitts really is a bust, we haven't seen what he did in college in the NFL. So this is a make or break season for Kyle Pitts, but you know, the Falcons as a whole, I think they have a lot more to prove before you can be said that they're the favorites. Now, I agree with you, Ryan, that the media has turned them into favorites for this division, but I don't think they should be favorites of anything until they've proven something. I mean, I'm going to sit there and say that the Bears and Caleb Williams have to go out there and prove it. I can't sit here and say that the Falcons are division favorites because at the end of the day, you know, the Bears, they're in a tougher division, but they have brought in more and done more to make their team better, I think, this year than the Atlanta Falcons did.
Fair enough.
I mean, he brought up Kyle Pitts. We spoke about another team's tight end room at length. Maybe there's a match there, you know, when Kyle Pitts is a free agent. Team may be missing Jelani Woods. Picks him up.
There we go. We'll trade him Trey Sermon. They need
a running back. Speaking of, though, I think the big reason why I think the Falcons would have a good shot to win their division is that I think Bijan finally breaks out. I'm going to write it down here. 1,250 yards for Bijan this year.
1,250. So what happens 1,249?
Is that all purpose or rushing?
Rushing.
Oh.
Cap.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
That's why it's a bold take.
Bold take?
I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I am saying it's going to happen. Bijan will run for 1,250 plus. The Falcons, if that happens, will win the division. Bijan has a real shot to be the fantasy RB1 this year. I think it's going to happen, that he will be going into next season as the RB1 in fantasy.
It's going to be tough when Tyler Algier takes his job.
Hey, Algier does not have the talent level that a Trey Sermon does, okay?
Yeah, they got to watch out for Trey Sermon coming to town when we trade him for Kyle Pitts.
But I think that the Falcons will succeed on the ground. I think that's going to be a big part of their game. I think Cousins is going to struggle coming back from that Achilles. And I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Penix more than we were expecting when he got drafted.
Penix is going to start week 1.
It's kind of scary.
Kirk's never going to see the field.
Never.
Wally pipped.
New Orleans Saints somehow won 9 games last year.
I don't know how.
I really don't either. 7.5 is their projected win total for this year. And I think even at that point, I would take the under because I don't believe we've said it once. We've said it a million times on this show. What do you have at quarterback? What do you have at head coach? This might be this is a bottom 5 pairing, I think, in the league. Derek Carr. It's not like Dennis Allen is not.
I like Derek Carr. I like Derek Carr.
Past tense.
I like Derek Carr, but I think Dennis Allen is the first coach fired this year.
You think he's the one during the season to go?
Absolutely.
Which he shouldn't be because, in fairness, New Orleans should have 0 expectations. But I believe, barring the Jets starting 1-5, which is possible, he will be the first coach fired.
Yeah.
I think he gets fired. Question is, does he get fired in November or December?
I think he gets fired heading into. I think he's fired before Thanksgiving.
Okay.
The Saints, I think, could really be the number 1 overall pick at the end of the season.
They have more talent than the Panthers, though.
Second place schedule, though, too.
Second place schedule. Derek Carr's washed. I like Derek Carr. I liked him a lot. I just think he's done. He looked done last year. Just that he couldn't do it anymore. It's time to hang him up. They have Olave. Who's going to throw Olave the ball? Taysom Hill's still there, vulturing from everybody.
Jake Haener.
Ian Book, is he still there?
No, Spencer Rattler.
Oh, lovely.
Spencer Rattler, QB1.
Spencer Rattler's currently listed as QB3 with Taysom Hill as QB4.
My goodness.
Taysom Hill could still be a tight end and quarterback in our fantasy league. So
Sean Payton is waiting for his opportunity to grab him.
Sean Payton's another one that might not make it through this season.
He will, just because they had the first round pick.
I was going to say they gave up a first round pick and paid him way too much money to not give him 3 years.
Yeah. Sorry,
Well,
Denver.
I think
He might get fired mid-season of next year, but he's got to at least get through this year, especially the way they moved off Russ.
You think Kevin James will play him in another movie then if he gets fired?
Oh my God, that was fantastic. That might have been the worst ending to a football movie I've ever seen.
Corey, when you can catch Adam Sandler in between takes on Happy Gilmore 2, I want you to ask him about his good friend Kevin James and what he was thinking accepting that role.
I mean, I can answer that question. It's a paycheck.
But
Fair.
what was Sean Payton doing letting them make that?
Getting a paycheck.
Yeah.
No, that was horrible. Especially, like, you guys saw. Did you guys see that movie?
I didn't even watch it. I'm a known Sean Pater hater. I'm not going to.
Sean Pater?
Pater.
A
Yeah.
Pater.
Corey,
I
you
got one
saw
now.
it, though.
Of course.
So, do you want to explain to Ryan how that movie ended?
No, I'd rather not relive it.
Yeah, we could do this off camera. We still
Oh,
got to talk about
horrible.
Tampa Bay. I think we've said about New Orleans. We don't believe in them. We don't think they're going to be good.
They suck.
They're stinky. Tampa Bay won this division 9-8 last year. Baker Mayfield, the Renaissance, won a playoff game against the Philadelphia Eagles. How about it?
Second
7.5 is their projected win total, despite, I mean, they lost a piece or two on defense, if I'm not mistaken. But otherwise, this roster is pretty much the same. Am I wrong?
They lost the linebacker. Who's his name?
Was it Devin White?
Shaq Barrett.
Shaq
Shaq
Barrett.
Barrett.
Yes,
Right,
Shaq Barrett.
That's right. They were. That was their defense style. That he was actually a linebacker. So I think really the biggest departure is Dave Canales, because you saw what Canales did in Seattle in 2022 with Geno Smith, resurrect his career, resurrect Baker Mayfield's career. That's why I have, spoiler alert, I have Carolina doubling their wins. They're going to win 4 whole games this year. And that's just because of Dave Canales. Exactly. And then they'll have to find him an actual quarterback. But Canales, I think, can do some good things, and that'll be Carolina's best case scenario. But for Tampa Bay, I think it might hit them a little bit. I think there will be a little regression, not much, just because they are still, you alluded to it, Ben, a well put together team roster wise. I always liked Baker Mayfield. I thought he got a raw deal in Cleveland, getting his bags packed and sent away and shipped out and kicked out of town. But
I think Cleveland's regretting that, especially with how Deshaun has worked out, because
Yeah.
they moved off of him to move on to nobody. And he was working for them.
Yeah. You wonder all the assets
Up and
they
back.
spent for Watson, picks for the trade, and then money and capital. They could have allocated all that to bettering the roster. And think about how much better Cleveland has a good roster as it is.
I think this is going to go down as like the curse of Baker. I don't know if Cleveland ever rebounds from this. I think that shirt of quarterbacks going back to the 90s just keeps getting longer.
They'll have to get Peyton Manning to do an exorcism like he did for Detroit.
I don't think the Browns deserve it, though.
No, and I don't think they do either.
Yeah.
But sticking on Tampa here, I think they may have one of the more underrated wide receiver rooms in the National Football League. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin obviously up top. I love Jalen McMillan. I think that he was a great pickup. He was a guy who was injured a lot last year, but he's another one of those Washington wide receivers. Very talented. They have Trey Palmer. By the way, Corey, You're wondering where our boy Shep went. Sterling Shepard, he's listed as their number 5 currently in Tampa Bay.
Does he
But
actually make the roster still? I feel like he's just a camp body.
I feel like he should make the roster because of Mike Evans and Chris Godwin's injury history. I think he's a good veteran wide receiver he's better than Raleigh Webb and Ryan Miller. Like, you're going to want to keep certain. I know he's not going to be a big special teams body for you, but either way, I love the wide receiver room. I think that, Trey Palmer and Jalen McMillan are perfect guys to fit behind Godwin and Evans. I'm a Rachaad White fan. I think that Baker Mayfield is a good quarterback. And I think the biggest thing with Baker Mayfield is he absorbs. He retains a lot of what he gets, like Canales, what he was doing last year that worked. He's going to keep that up. It's something that, he was able to do with Lincoln Riley, and you saw he brought to Cleveland. He was able to bring that swagger, and he got his swagger back in Los Angeles with Sean McVay. And I think he retained a lot there. And I think that actually had a bigger impact on Baker Mayfield than Canales did. I just really like this offense. I think that, they're still going to put up points, and I think they're more proven than the Atlanta Falcons. Defensively, yeah, you lose Shaq Barrett, but you still have Kalijah Cansey. Levante David still talented. In the secondary, you have Antoine Winfield and Jordan Whitehead. Jamel Dean is still a very talented cornerback. So there's not a lot that I don't like about the Bucs team. I think that their win total is low, honestly. I think that this is who my favorite to win the division is at 9 wins again.
Yeah, the Bucs, I think, are the most proven. I just don't know if they have a higher ceiling than the Falcons. I think Mike Evans, obviously, future Hall of Famer. He's going to eat. Godwin finally back. I think they're going to use him properly. I have a lot of faith in Godwin bouncing back. Their run game, Rachaad White. Do we really like Rachaad White? No, we don't.
I like him. I don't love him.
I don't think
I don't know the guy.
Starter on 25 other teams. You're thinking about it, and you know it's true.
We don't have enough time for me to think about it.
So I think the best running back in the division is obviously Bijan. I think that the Buccaneers are the safest team, but this is also a division I think could send 2 teams to the playoffs, especially given how weak the NFC is. I think that they could get a division winner plus a wild card in there.
Yeah, look, if you have 2 teams in your division win 9 games in the NFC, there's a chance you do get those 2 teams. I agree with you there, Corey. I think it's a possibility. I don't completely agree with it, but it is a weaker NFC. I think the NFC North is better this year, though. The Bears are going to be better. I think the NFC West is better. I think the Rams are going to be good for an entire season. I think the Cardinals are going to be more competitive. I think Seattle, at worst, maybe they drop like a game or 2, but they're still going to be competitive. I think the NFC East is better outside of the Giants. I think even the Giants got better, but Washington's going to compete. Philly's going to compete. Dallas is going to compete. So you have 3 teams in the East, North, and West that are going to be competing for, what's that, 6 spots?
7.
So, well, I'm saying 6 in general with those 3 division titles and the 3 wild cards. I'm not counting the NFC South.
Yeah.
Okay. So between those 9 teams are vying for 6 spots. I understand the Falcons with their schedule. They may be able to get some breaks, but I don't believe that the Falcons are a top 9 team in the NFC right now.
All right.
We'll
have to see. Bijan 1250.
1250. I do have Atlanta winning this division at 10. 10 wins. I have Tampa coming back strong, back-to-backs. I think they were 8-9 2022. Where they were division winners with a losing record. Okay, so 2 years in a row with 9 wins. Certainly in contention for the wild card spot. I'll have to go back and see, like you said, teams like the Rams, Seattle. I would lean Dallas again in the wild card rather than Philly, but that's a discussion for next week. But yeah, you're right. It's competitive in that sense where maybe it's not as strong as the AFC, where we're going to see some powerhouse teams as wild card teams, but it's a wide open door where anyone can nab it.
Well, they're expecting two good quarterbacks to come in here in Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels. And they think that these two guys are going to make an impact right away. I hope for Jaden Daniels' sake that Washington figures out the offensive line, because it's going to be a very RG3-like career for him if it doesn't.
Yeah, let's hope he has an RG3 type career without the injuries. Just bad.
I was going to say, as a Giant fan, you don't want to see him tearing you up. But just as a football fan, he throws a beautiful ball. Definitely want to see him succeed. Just not in Washington, obviously. But Washington, they seem to have kind of done everything but the offensive line for him. Defensively, they have a lot to be desired with as well. We'll get into them later. But I think Washington's going to be a force this year as well.
Yeah. So your division prediction then for the South?
So for the South, I said before, I think the Bucs are the favorites. They're going to win this division at 9 games again. I think the Falcons are going to take some more steps forward. But again, this is a new regime, new coach. I understand the schedule is nice, but they're going to go 8-9. They might be able to get 9 wins, but the tiebreaker is going to go to Tampa. I think Tampa is going to win both of those games against Atlanta. I think that's going to be the decider. I think Tampa Bay and their experience is going to be what pulls them ahead. I think Baker Mayfield's a gamer. Don't love the guy as a top quarterback in the NFL, but I love him as a competitor. And look, I think competitors are going to give you the edge when you have matchups like this. So Falcons in second. I think the Saints are going to be at the bottom of this division. I think Carolina is going to be able to get a couple of wins. They might get up to 4, like you said, Ryan, but I think the Saints are going to be in the running for the top pick this year. And they're not going to be able to surround Carson Beck with anything, because they have no money.
Give me a go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
I got the Falcons winning the division, Bucs in second. I think they both make the playoffs right now. That stands to change once I start looking at, other divisions and thinking a little more broadly. I think the Panthers could, again, double their win total. They could also win 3 games and still come in third place. The Saints are going to struggle to win games. 1 win, 2 wins. I think they could also be this year's Cardinals, except not with the competitive play.
This year's Panthers.
This
year's Panthers.
They could be. They just don't have unless they have Rattler and they don't have that young quarterback, losing games.
I was going to say Derek Carr at the end of the day, he might steal you a game.
Yeah.
Like I like Derek Carr. I loved him when he was in Oakland. It's a shame. The Carrs have gotten a bad hand in the NFL.
They have.
Yeah. I think it might have got lost. I had Atlanta then Tampa, but I do have New Orleans in third over Carolina, not by much. I'll say like 5 wins for New Orleans and then Carolina with like 3, probably 4, something like that. But certainly New Orleans and Carolina will be afterthoughts. I think
Carolina is going to try to win more games. I think ultimately,
I would hope they try to win every game.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. I think that, you're trying to win games. I think New Orleans is going to get to a point where they are no longer trying to win games. Oof. You're going to see Miller in at running back. You're going to see
mid-season move for Trace
Rattler ducks up to Rashid Shaheed.
All right. There you have it. The NFC South will be plenty entertaining. We'll look for potential tanking down in Louisiana. But that'll do it. Next week, by process of elimination, we have the AFC and NFC East divisions. So we'll be talking about your Giants, you two. We'll try and reach out to Dylan to get some Eagles representation on the show. But that'll wrap it up then for the divisional preview. So join us next week. Thank you, as always, for listening right here, the Outsider Sports Football Podcast.